March 12, 1943. 340 miles southwest of Iceland, 200 feet beneath the North Atlantic's black surface, Korvettenkapitän Werner Kleist couldn't suppress his confident smile as he studied the hydrophone operator's calm expression through the red-lit control room of U-517. "The Americans are deaf and blind down here," he transmitted to his first officer, his voice barely above a whisper in the cramped submarine. "Their primitive listening devices couldn't find a battleship at 500 meters. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." What Kleist didn't know, what none of the 40,000 German submariners stalking Allied convoys could have imagined, was that they were about to face a technological revolution that would transform the hunter into the hunted. Within 12 months, these invisible wolves of the Atlantic would discover that American sonar could detect their presence from distances that defied everything they understood about underwater acoustics. The mathematics of their destruction were already being calibrated in laboratories, from San Diego to Boston. Sound waves that would penetrate the ocean's depths with a precision that turned submarine warfare into a death sentence. The transformation began not with a bang, but with a ping, heard 5 miles away. In early 1943, German U-boats dominated the Atlantic with near impunity. Admiral Karl Donitz's Wolfpack tactics had sunk over 3,500 Allied merchant ships since 1939, sending 175,000 tons of supplies to the ocean floor monthly. The U-boat force had grown from 57 submarines at war's start to over 400 operational boats, each one a potential death sentence for Allied convoys. The Type 7 U-boat, backbone of the Kriegsmarine submarine fleet, represented the pinnacle of German naval engineering. At 210 feet long with a submerged displacement of 871 tons, these vessels could dive to 750 feet, cruise for 8,500 nautical miles, and remain at sea for 3 months. Their crews, typically 44 men crammed into spaces barely larger than railroad cars, became legends of the deep. Oberlieutenant Sir Heinrich Miller, commanding U-223, exemplified the confident U-boat ace of early 1943. With 14 Allied ships totaling 87,000 tons to his credit, Miller had survived 32 patrols through some of the war's most dangerous waters. His philosophy was simple and had kept him alive when so many others had perished. "The ocean hides us. The darkness protects us. Allied detection equipment is primitive garbage that barely works in perfect conditions. We are ghosts that cannot be found." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The Allied convoy system, while providing some protection through numbers and escort vessels, still relied on World War I-era detection methods. British ASDIC, Anti-Submarine Detection Investigation Committee, equipment, the predecessor to modern sonar, could theoretically detect submerged submarines at ranges up to 2,500 yards under ideal conditions. In practice, ocean conditions, thermal layers, and the skill of U-boat commanders reduced effective detection ranges to less than 1,000 yards, often much less. German submariners had developed sophisticated evasion tactics. They understood that thermal gradients in the ocean created layers that reflected sound waves. A skilled commander could hide his boat beneath the thermocline, the boundary between water masses of different temperatures, effectively becoming invisible to ASDIC. They knew that rough seas, biological noise from schools of fish, and the acoustic clutter of multiple ships masked their presence. Korvettenkapitän Otto Kraus, commanding the 2nd U-boat flotilla from Lorient, France, reported to Donitz in February 1943 with complete confidence. Allied anti-submarine measures remain ineffective. Our commanders report that escort vessels pass within 500 meters without detecting them. The British ASDIC cannot penetrate below 150 meters reliably. Our boats operating at depth are completely safe. American destroyers are even worse, their crews poorly trained and their equipment inferior to British systems. The statistics seem to confirm German confidence. In the first quarter of 1943, U-boats sank 627,000 tons of Allied shipping while losing only 15 submarines. The exchange rate heavily favored Germany. Each U-boat cost approximately 4.2 million Reichsmarks and required 9 months to build. Each sinking represented a victory that strangled Britain's supply lines and threatened to drive the British out of the war.
The United States Navy had entered the war with anti-submarine capabilities that were, charitably described, inadequate. American destroyers and destroyer escorts were equipped with various sonar systems collectively designated as QC and QGB series equipment. These active sonar systems operated at frequencies between 20 and 30 kHz, sending out acoustic pulses and listening for echoes. The fundamental problem was range and reliability. Early American sonar could theoretically detect a submarine at 2,000 yards, but ocean conditions routinely reduced this to a few hundred yards. Thermal layers deflected sound waves. Biological noise from marine life created false contacts. The sonar operators, many of them teenagers fresh from farms and factories, lacked the experience to distinguish genuine submarine contacts from phantom echoes. Commander David Richardson, commanding the destroyer escort USS Buckley, experienced the frustration firsthand during a February 1943 convoy escort mission. His after-action report revealed the desperate situation. Established sonar contact at 800 yards, classified as possible submarine. Initiated attack run. Lost contact at 400 yards due to thermal layer interference. Dropped depth charge pattern based on dead reckoning. No evidence of damage or destruction. Regained sonar contact 1,200 yards distant, contact fading rapidly. Submarine escaped. Our sonar equipment is insufficient for this mission. We are trying to hunt submarines with equipment designed for surface ship detection. The American anti-submarine warfare establishment understood they were losing the Battle of the Atlantic. In January 1943 alone, U-boats sank 203,000 tons of shipping in American coastal waters, often within sight of shore. The second happy time, as German submariners called it, was bleeding America's merchant fleet dry. But in laboratories and research facilities across America, a technological revolution was already underway. The University of California Division of War Research, the Harvard Underwater Sound Laboratory, and the Naval Research Laboratory were developing active sonar systems that would change everything.
The breakthrough came from understanding physics that German scientists had dismissed as impractical. Dr. Harold Lyons, leading a team at the University of California, had been experimenting with low-frequency active sonar operating at frequencies below 10 kHz. Conventional wisdom held that lower frequencies sacrificed resolution for range, making target discrimination impossible. Lyons' team discovered something remarkable. Low-frequency sonar pulses at specific frequencies between 14 and 18 kHz could penetrate thermal layers that defeated higher-frequency systems. More importantly, at these frequencies, the inverse square law governing acoustic propagation worked in their favor. Sound energy decreased more slowly with distance, allowing detection ranges that seemed impossible. The prototype system, designated QHB, achieved detection ranges exceeding 8,000 yards, nearly 5 miles, under good conditions. Even in moderate seas with thermal layering, the system reliably detected submarines at 4,000 to 5,000 yards, ranges that gave destroyer escorts multiple opportunities to attack before U-boats could react. Lieutenant Commander James Walsh, assigned to evaluate the prototype system in January 1943, was skeptical. "I've been hunting submarines with equipment that barely works at half a mile. They're telling me this new system works at 5 miles? I didn't believe it until I saw it detect a practice submarine at 7,200 yards in rough seas with a thermal layer at 200 feet. The submarine commander said it was impossible. He was hiding under a layer that should have made him invisible. The QHB found him anyway." The key was signal processing. The QHB system used multiple transducers arranged in arrays that focused acoustic energy into narrow beams. These beams could be steered electronically, scanning a 180-degree arc ahead of the ship in seconds. The returning echoes were amplified and filtered to remove biological noise and sea clutter. More revolutionary was the automatic ranging system. Earlier sonar required operators to manually estimate range based on the time delay between pulse and echo. The QHB system automatically calculated range, bearing, and even estimated target depth based on echo characteristics. An experienced operator could determine not just that a submarine was present, but whether it was moving toward or away, ascending or diving, and approximately what type of vessel it was. Production began in March 1943. The Bath Iron Works in Maine, already building destroyer escorts, began installing QHB systems on new construction vessels. Existing destroyers were recalled to shipyards for retrofit installations. By May 1943, 27 American destroyer escorts carried the new sonar. By August, that number reached 94. The first operational encounter between American long-range sonar and a U-boat occurred on May 19, 1943, in the North Atlantic, south of Greenland. The destroyer escort USS England, commanded by Lieutenant Commander Walton Pendleton, was screening convoy HX-239 when her QHB operator, sonar technician First Class Michael O'Brien, detected an anomalous contact. O'Brien, a former automotive mechanic from Detroit with just 8 months in the Navy, had been trained on the new system for only 3 weeks. His training report had been mediocre, but at 03:42 hours, studying his scope in the darkened sonar room, he saw something that didn't belong. Contact, bearing 045, range 8,000 yards, O'Brien reported, his voice uncertain. This was far beyond anything he'd been taught was possible. Pendleton, a career officer with 5 years of anti-submarine experience, was skeptical. Verify contact. Check for biological noise, thermal scatter. O'Brien ran through his checklist. The echo signature was clean, consistent, moving at approximately 7 knots on a steady bearing. Contact verified, classification, submerged submarine, high confidence. What neither American knew was that the contact was U-456, commanded by Korvettenkapitän Max Teichert. Teichert was a veteran with 19 ships sunk across 41 patrols. He was cruising at 120 feet, well below what he believed was the effective range of Allied sonar, using a thermal layer at 80 feet to mask his approach to the convoy. Pendleton brought England to attack speed, vectoring toward the contact. At 6,000 yards, Teichert's hydrophone operator detected the approaching destroyer. This was normal. Destroyers made noise. But they were detecting him from 5 miles away? Impossible. Teichert ordered an evasion maneuver, diving to 200 feet and turning perpendicular to the destroyer's approach. This tactic had worked dozens of times before. The Allied ship would lose contact, search fruitlessly for a while, then return to the convoy. But O'Brien never lost contact. The QHB sonar tracked U-456 through its turn, through its depth change, maintaining lock as the range closed.
At 2,000 yards, Pendleton ordered the Hedgehog mortar system armed. Unlike depth charges that exploded at preset depths, Hedgehog rockets formed a pattern ahead of the ship and only detonated on contact with the submarine. At 400 yards, with U-456 clearly visible on sonar attempting to go deep, England fired a full pattern of 24 Hedgehog rockets. Tykert, hearing the splashes, ordered emergency dive to 300 feet, beyond the submarine's test depth, but the only chance for survival. The Hedgehog pattern bracketed U-456 perfectly. 3 rockets struck the pressure hull. The detonations at 280 feet crushed the submarine like an aluminum can. There were no survivors from the 47-man crew. Pendleton circled the debris field, his sonar tracking pieces of the submarine as they sank into the abyss. His action report was clinical, but revealed his shock. Maintained sonar contact from initial detection at 8,000 yards through complete attack sequence. Contact never lost despite evasive maneuvers, including depth change and course alteration. New QHB sonar performed beyond specification. Submarine had no chance to escape once detected.
Throughout May and June 1943, more U-boats encountered the new American sonar. The pattern was always the same: detection at impossible ranges, continuous tracking through evasive maneuvers, deadly accurate attacks that gave submarines no chance to escape. Kapitän Friedrich Braun, commanding U-628, survived an encounter on June 3rd that left him shaken. His boat had been detected at what he estimated was 7,000 meters, nearly 4 miles, while hiding beneath a thermal layer at 150 meters depth. The American destroyer had tracked him for 20 minutes before breaking off to rejoin its convoy. Brown's report to U-boat headquarters revealed the psychological impact. The Americans have developed detection equipment far superior to anything we were briefed about. They found us at ranges we believed impossible, tracked us through multiple evasion attempts, and maintained contact even when we went deep beneath thermal layers. Only the destroyer's need to return to convoy protection saved us. If it had pressed the attack, we would be dead. The industrial and technological superiority of American anti-submarine warfare was devastating. By August 1943, the United States was producing destroyer escorts at a rate of 7 per week. Each new vessel carried QHB sonar, advanced fire control systems, and weapons that made submarine hunting a matter of systematic execution rather than luck. The Buckley-class destroyer escort, produced at 4 shipyards simultaneously, represented mass production on a scale Germany couldn't match. Each vessel cost $6 million and required just 6 months from keel laying to commissioning. The welded construction, standardized components, and assembly line manufacturing techniques borrowed from automotive production allowed America to build escorts faster than Germany could build submarines. More importantly, the sonar operators were getting better. The initial cadre of technicians trained on QHB systems began teaching new operators, passing on techniques and tactics that improved detection performance. By fall 1943, experienced operators were achieving detection ranges exceeding 10,000 yards under ideal conditions. Sonar technician First Class Robert Martinez, operating QHB sonar aboard USS Bory, described the evolution. "When I started in May, detecting a submarine at 5 miles seemed like magic. By September, it was routine. We learned to read the signatures, understand how ocean conditions affected propagation, optimize our search patterns. The equipment was excellent, but the trained operator made it deadly." The weapons improved as well. The Mark X Hedgehog system was joined by the Mark 15 Mousetrap forward-throwing weapon and improved depth charges with magnetic and acoustic fusing. American ships could attack submarines with weapons that only needed to explode near the target rather than scoring direct hits. Captain Daniel Gallery, commanding the escort carrier USS Guadalcanal and her hunter-killer group, employed tactics that combined long-range sonar with aggressive prosecution. His task group sank 11 U-boats between March and June 1944, capturing U-505 intact in June, the only enemy warship boarded and captured by U.S. forces during the war. Gallery's tactical doctrine became standard for American anti-submarine forces. The new sonar gives us the initiative. We detect them before they detect us. We track them while they're still trying to figure out where we are. We attack from positions that give them no chance to evade. The submarine's advantages of stealth and invisibility are gone. They're just targets waiting to be destroyed. By autumn 1943, German U-boat commanders understood they were facing something unprecedented. The confident predictions of early 1943 had given way to grim acceptance that the Atlantic was no longer their domain. Korvettenkapitän Peter Kramer, commanding U-333, wrote in his diary after a harrowing patrol in October, "We are being hunted by destroyers that see us from distances we cannot escape. 7 times this patrol we were detected and forced to evade. Each time the destroyer found us from ranges exceeding 5,000 meters. They track us like hounds following a scent. There is nowhere to hide in the ocean anymore. The thermal layers don't protect us. Going deep doesn't help. They simply follow us until we must surface or die from depleted batteries." The psychological toll was immense. U-boat crews that had once felt invincible now sailed knowing that detection meant near certain death. The American destroyers didn't just sink submarines, they hunted them with relentless efficiency that gave crews no chance to escape. Admiral Donitz, forced to acknowledge the changed situation, withdrew U-boats from the North Atlantic convoy routes in May 1943. This admission of defeat came after losing 1 U-boat for every 2 Allied ships sunk, an exchange rate that would destroy the U-boat force within months if continued. But even withdrawing to areas with less Allied presence provided no safety. American escort carriers, destroyer escorts, and patrol aircraft equipped with improved radar and sonobuoys hunted U-boats across the Atlantic. The submarines that had once been hunters were now prey. The Americans didn't rest on their achievement. Throughout 1944, sonar technology continued to advance. The QHB system was joined by the QLA, featuring better signal processing and improved transducers that extended range to 12,000 yards under good conditions. Sonobuoys, expendable acoustic sensors dropped from aircraft, created networks that detected submarines over vast areas. When a sonobuoy detected a submarine, it transmitted a radio signal to the aircraft, which could vector destroyers to the contact or attack with acoustic homing torpedoes. The Mark 24 acoustic homing torpedo, codenamed Fido, was perhaps the most terrifying development for German submariners. Dropped from aircraft, Fido listened for submarine propeller noise and guided itself to the target. Once it acquired a submarine, escape was nearly impossible. Between 1943 and 1945, Fido torpedoes sank 37 U-boats and damaged 18 others. Oberlieutenant zur See Karl-Heinz Mohle, one of the few submarine commanders to survive a Fido attack, described it in post-war interrogation. "We heard the aircraft overhead, but were too deep for bombs to reach us. Then we heard splashes, followed by a high-pitched whine in the water. Our sound operator screamed that a torpedo was tracking us. We went to emergency depth, made radical course changes, tried everything. The torpedo followed every turn. It was a machine that could hear us and wanted to kill us. We only survived because it malfunctioned and circled away." The numbers tell the story of a one-sided slaughter. From May 1943 to May 1945, Germany lost 630 U-boats, with approximately 26,000 submariners killed. The U-boat force that had once threatened to strangle Britain was destroyed by a combination of technology, tactics, and industrial capacity that Germany couldn't match. American shipyards produced 498 destroyer escorts during the war, along with hundreds of destroyers, escort carriers, and patrol craft. Each vessel carried increasingly sophisticated sonar that made submarine detection routine rather than exceptional. The production of sonar equipment alone exceeded Germany's entire electronics industry output. The training pipeline was equally impressive. By 1944, the United States Navy was graduating 12,000 sonar operators annually, each trained to operate equipment more sophisticated than anything Germany possessed. The institutional knowledge grew with each class, creating a generation of specialists who understood submarine hunting at a fundamental level. May 7, 1945. The final U-boat sunk by American forces was U-853, destroyed by the destroyer escort USS Atherton and frigate USS Moberly off Block Island on May 6, 1945. The engagement lasted just 14 minutes from initial detection to final explosion. Lieutenant Commander Louis Nocquin, commanding Atherton, detected U-853 at 6,200 yards using QLA sonar. The submarine was cruising at 80 feet, apparently unaware that American destroyers were nearby. Nocquin closed to 800 yards and fired a full hedgehog pattern. Multiple hits crushed the submarine's pressure hull, killing all 55 crew members instantly. Nocquin's final action report included a note that captured the complete transformation of anti-submarine warfare. Detection was immediate and tracking continuous. Submarine made no evasive maneuvers, suggesting they were unaware of our approach until we were in attack position. The engagement demonstrates the complete superiority of American sonar technology. The submarine had no chance from the moment we detected them.
Behind the technical specifications and tactical reports lay the human reality of submarine warfare, transformed by American sonar superiority. The crews aboard U-boats faced psychological pressures that turned brave men into nervous wrecks within weeks of patrol. Lieutenant Terze Martin Schreiber, a 23-year-old watch officer aboard U-731, kept a personal diary that was recovered when his submarine was captured in November 1943. His entries reveal the mental deterioration that came with being hunted by invisible electronic eyes. Day 12 of patrol. The hydrophone operator reports propeller sounds at extreme range. We go silent, waiting. Nothing. Was it real or imagination? Every man aboard is jumping at shadows now. We know the Americans can detect us from distances that seem impossible. Every noise might be the destroyer that finds us. Every ping might be our death sentence. Day 18. Detected by destroyer at what must have been 6,000 meters. We dove to 180 meters, made radical course changes, shut down all non-essential equipment. The pinging followed us for 47 minutes. 47 minutes of knowing that death was tracking us, that at any moment the depth charges would come. They finally broke off, but we don't know why. Did they lose us, or simply choose to let us go? The uncertainty is worse than combat. Day 24. Another detection, this time at night on the surface. We crash-dived and they followed us down. The pinging is constant now, a mechanical heartbeat that never stops. We can hear it through the hull. Ping, ping, ping. Always the same interval, always getting closer. The men are breaking. Our engineer vomited during the last attack. Our cook refuses to eat. I catch myself shaking and cannot stop. Schreiber's boat survived that patrol, but was sunk with all hands in February 1944. The diary was found among his effects after U-731 was forced to surface under depth charge attack and the crew captured by USS Braunstein.
The U-boat training facilities at Pillau and Neustadt tried to prepare crews for the new reality of American sonar dominance. But no amount of training could replicate the psychological horror of being tracked by an enemy you couldn't see, couldn't evade, and couldn't fight. Korvettenkapitän Hans-Georg von Friedeburg, responsible for U-boat personnel matters, reported to Dönitz in December 1943 about the morale crisis. Our crews are reporting symptoms consistent with severe combat fatigue after single patrols. Men who survived multiple patrols under previous conditions are breaking down mentally after one encounter with American hunter-killer groups. The knowledge that they can be detected at any time from any distance, that no evasive maneuver provides safety, is destroying their will to fight. We are seeing increased incidents of crew members requesting medical transfers, psychiatric evaluations, and even disciplinary issues from men attempting to avoid patrol duty. This is unprecedented in the U-boat service. These are not cowards, these are men who understand they are being sent to certain death with no chance to fight back.
While German submariners faced psychological collapse, American sonar operators were experiencing the opposite transformation. The young men operating QHB and QLA systems discovered they possessed power over life and death through electronic wizardry they barely understood. Sonar technician second class Thomas Bradley, age 19, from rural Kansas, had never seen the ocean before joining the Navy in June 1942. By October 1943, he was operating the most sophisticated underwater detection system in the world aboard USS Averfield. Bradley's letters home, released by his family decades after his death in 1998, provide insight into the mindset of the men behind the scopes. "Mom, I can't tell you exactly what I do because it's classified, but I can say that I operate equipment that helps us find submarines. Yesterday, I detected one from so far away that the captain didn't believe me at first. But I was right. We tracked it for 20 minutes before we attacked. The explosion was so powerful it shook our whole ship. 40 or 50 German sailors died because I pressed the right buttons and read my scope correctly. I'm 19 years old, and I've killed more enemy than most infantry soldiers will see in the whole war. I don't know how to feel about that." The sonar operators formed a tight community aboard their ships and across the fleet. They shared techniques, compared contacts, and competed to achieve the longest detection ranges. A culture developed that treated submarine hunting as a science requiring precision, patience, and analytical thinking. Chief Sonar Technician Raymond Foster, a pre-war Navy veteran who trained dozens of operators, described the ideal sonar man. "You need patience because sometimes you're staring at your scope for 8 hours waiting for that one contact. You need discipline because you can't let fatigue or boredom make you miss the subtle echo that might be a submarine. You need intelligence to interpret what you're seeing, to distinguish a real submarine from a false contact. And you need a certain coldness because when you find one, you're killing men. Boys, really. Just like you. But if you hesitate, if you let sympathy cloud your judgment, the convoy dies instead. So you do your job." The most successful sonar operators developed almost supernatural abilities to extract information from their equipment. They could identify submarine types by echo characteristics, estimate speed and depth with remarkable accuracy, and even predict evasive maneuvers before submarines made them. Sonar technician First Class Anthony Rizzo, who achieved 12 confirmed submarine detections leading to kills aboard USS England, explained his technique. "You learn to hear things in the echo that aren't in the manual. A Type 7 sounds different from a Type 9 because they're different sizes, different shapes. You can tell if they're running on electric motors or diesels by the quality of the return, if they're deep or shallow, if they're damaged because the echo becomes irregular. After enough contacts, you don't think about it, you just know.
That's his submarine at 5,000 yards, bearing 270, depth approximately 150 feet, speed 7 knots, turning to port. How do I know? I just know. Throughout 1944, American sonar technology continued its rapid evolution. The Naval Research Laboratory developed the QLA-3, featuring improved signal processing that could detect submarines at ranges exceeding 15,000 yards under ideal conditions. The system could now track multiple contacts simultaneously, critical as American forces shifted from defensive convoy escort to offensive submarine hunting. The addition of Doppler processing allowed operators to determine target motion with unprecedented accuracy. A submarine moving toward the searching ship created a slight frequency shift in the returning echo, while one moving away created the opposite shift. This information allowed tactical officers to predict submarine positions and set up attack runs with geometric precision. Commander Eugene Fluckey, commanding USS Barb in the Pacific, used these capabilities to revolutionize submarine hunting tactics. His aggressive approach, vectoring in on Japanese submarines using long-range sonar and attacking before they could react, resulted in multiple submarine kills and earned him the Medal of Honor. Fluckey's tactical manual, distributed throughout the Pacific Fleet in late 1944, emphasized the offensive use of superior detection. The submarine's advantage has always been stealth. American sonar has eliminated that advantage. We now detect them before they detect us. This changes everything. Instead of waiting for submarines to attack and then trying to find them, we hunt them aggressively. We search the areas they must transit. We detect them at maximum range, and we kill them before they know we're there. The hunter has become the hunted. The integration of sonar with fire control systems created a seamless kill chain. Sonar detected the submarine and continuously updated position data. Fire control computed optimal attack geometry. Weapon systems received targeting information automatically. From detection to weapon release could take as little as 2 minutes, giving submarines no time to react. The Mark 32 torpedo, entering service in late 1944, carried an acoustic homing system that used the submarine's own noise to guide the weapon to target. Combined with long-range sonar detection, this created an engagement envelope where American ships could attack submarines from ranges exceeding 3,000 yards, well beyond the effective range of German torpedoes.
German naval engineering desperately tried to counter American sonar superiority. The solutions ranged from the practical to the fantastical, from incremental improvements to revolutionary designs that never left the drawing board. The simplest countermeasure was the bold decoy, a canister released from the submarine that created a bubble cloud meant to confuse sonar. The device worked against earlier British ASDIC, but proved largely ineffective against American QHB and QLA systems. The sophisticated signal processing could distinguish between the chaotic reflections from bold and the solid echo of a submarine hull. Kapitänleutnant Wolfgang Luth, one of Germany's most successful U-boat aces, with 225,000 tons of shipping sunk, tested bold extensively during his final patrol in October 1943. His report was pessimistic. The bold decoy may confuse British ASDIC briefly, but American sonar appears unaffected. During 3 separate encounters with American destroyers, deployment of bold had no noticeable effect on their tracking. They maintained continuous contact through multiple bold releases. The enemy sonar seems capable of seeing through our countermeasures. More exotic solutions included coating submarine hulls with rubber tiles designed to absorb sonar pulses. The Type 21 U-boat, entering service in early 1945, featured this anechoic coating along with a streamlined design that reduced acoustic signature. But production delays and material shortages meant only a handful entered service before war's end, too few to affect the outcome. The Schnorkel device, allowing submarines to run diesel engines while submerged at periscope depth, offered some protection by eliminating the need to surface for battery charging. But even schnorkeling submarines could be detected by American radar and sonar. The device reduced vulnerability, but didn't eliminate it.
Dr. Helmuth Walter's revolutionary hydrogen peroxide propulsion system promised underwater speeds exceeding 20 knots, potentially allowing submarines to outrun pursuing destroyers. The experimental boats demonstrated impressive performance, but were prohibitively expensive and dangerous to operate. Several exploded during trials, killing their crews. The fundamental problem was that Germany was playing catch-up in a technological race it had already lost. American sonar represented years of research, billions of dollars in development funding, and an industrial base that could produce sophisticated electronics in quantities Germany couldn't approach. Konteradmiral Eberhard Gott, chief of U-boat operations, summarized the situation in a March 1944 assessment. The Americans have achieved a technological breakthrough in underwater detection that we cannot match with our current resources. Our countermeasures are ineffective, our new designs will arrive too late and in insufficient numbers. The stark reality is that American sonar has made conventional submarine warfare impossible. We are sending our men to die in vessels that have become obsolete overnight.
Die Kluft between American and German capabilities extended beyond technology to the fundamental issue of training. The United States had created a comprehensive anti-submarine warfare school system that produced operators, tacticians, and commanders in industrial quantities with consistent quality. The Fleet Sound School in Key West, Florida, and the Anti-Submarine Warfare School in Miami trained thousands of sonar operators annually. Each student received a minimum of 8 weeks intensive instruction combining classroom theory with practical exercises against practice submarines. The curriculum covered acoustic physics, equipment operation, contact classification, tracking techniques, and attack coordination. Students practiced on simulators that replicated combat conditions, including thermal layers, sea state effects, and multiple contacts. They graduated only after demonstrating proficiency in detecting submarines at maximum effective range and maintaining track through evasive maneuvers. Lieutenant Commander Robert Burns, chief instructor at the Fleet Sound School in 1944, described the training philosophy. "We are not teaching button pushers, we are creating submarine hunters who understand their equipment at a fundamental level. They need to know why the sonar works, not just how to operate it. When they encounter conditions not covered in the manual, they need to understand the physics well enough to adapt. That's why we spent 2 weeks just on acoustic propagation theory before they ever touch operational equipment."
By mid-1944, with the invasion of Normandy secured and convoy protection robust, American escort carriers and their destroyer escorts transitioned to offensive submarine hunting. These hunter-killer groups roamed the Atlantic, searching for U-boats rather than waiting for U-boats to attack convoys. The concept was simple, but revolutionary. An escort carrier provided air cover and reconnaissance, while 4 to 6 destroyer escorts formed a screen around it. When aircraft or sonar detected a submarine, the entire group converged for the kill. The submarines had nowhere to hide, nowhere to run, no chance to escape. Task Group 22.3, commanded by Captain Daniel Gallery aboard USS Guadalcanal, exemplified this new doctrine. Between March and June 1944, Gallery's group sank 6 U-boats and captured U-505, achieving the highest success rate of any anti-submarine unit in the Atlantic. Gallery's tactical approach combined aggressive air searches with coordinated sonar sweeps. His destroyer escorts operated in box patterns, each ship covering a sector with overlapping sonar coverage. When one ship detected a submarine, the others converged, creating a closing trap that prevented escape. The capture of U-505 demonstrated the completeness of American technological and tactical superiority. On June 4, 1944, USS Chatelaine detected U-505 at 6,800 yards, while the submarine was running submerged, attempting to evade aircraft that had spotted its snorkel mast. Lieutenant Commander Dudley Knox, commanding Chatelaine, tracked the submarine for 14 minutes while calling in the other escorts. When the range closed to 1,000 yards, Chatelaine fired a full hedgehog pattern. Multiple hits forced U-505 to surface. What happened next was unprecedented. Instead of sinking the submarine, Gallery had trained boarding parties to capture enemy submarines intact. As U-505's crew abandoned ship, American sailors boarded the damaged boat, preventing scuttling charges from detonating. The capture yielded codebooks, cipher machines, and intelligence that compromised German naval communications. Kapitänleutnant Harold Lange, U-505's commander, later stated during interrogation that he had never imagined being captured in the middle of the Atlantic. "We were running deep, using the snorkel, taking every precaution. They found us anyway. The attack came so fast we had no chance to defend ourselves or even properly scuttle the boat. Their detection capabilities are beyond anything we were told to expect."
As 1945 began, the U-boat force existed primarily on paper. Fuel shortages kept most boats in port. Those that did sail faced an Atlantic dominated by American sonar-equipped escorts that made survival impossible. The average U-boat patrol in early 1945 lasted 3 weeks before destruction. The statistical reality was stark. In the first quarter of 1945, U-boats sank 32 Allied ships totaling 126,000 tons while losing 114 submarines. The exchange rate had reversed completely from 1942, when U-boats sank 7 ships for every submarine lost. Korvettenkapitän Werner Kleist, one of the few surviving U-boat aces with over 200,000 tons of shipping sunk, wrote in his final patrol report in February 1945 before his boat was ordered to return to port permanently, "We are no longer a fighting force. We are targets for American technology we cannot counter. Every patrol is suicide. Every contact with enemy forces ends in our destruction. The boys we're sending to sea now have days to live, not months or years. This is not warfare. It is systematic slaughter." The Type 21 U-boat, Germany's last hope for submarine superiority, arrived too late and in numbers too small. Only 4 became operational before war's end, and none completed combat patrols. Even these advanced boats, with their streamlined hulls and anechoic coatings, would have faced American sonar that had evolved beyond their countermeasures. The final U-boat sunk by American forces was U-853, destroyed on May 6, 1945, just 2 days before Germany's surrender. The engagement lasted 14 minutes from detection to destruction. U-853's crew never knew they were being tracked until the Hedgehog round struck their hull.
In the years following World War II, the role of advanced sonar in defeating the U-boat threat became widely recognized within military and technical communities. The technology developed under wartime pressure formed the foundation for decades of anti-submarine warfare doctrine. At a 1957 Naval Symposium in Washington, Admiral Arleigh Burke, Chief of Naval Operations, addressed the submarine veterans and sonar technicians in attendance. "We defeated the U-boat threat through a combination of courage, determination, and technological superiority. But let us be honest about which factor was most important. The courage was abundant on both sides. The determination matched. What was not matched was the technology. American sonar gave us the ability to see submarines that thought they were invisible. That single capability changed the course of the Atlantic battle and possibly the war." German naval officers interviewed in post-war years universally acknowledged American sonar superiority as the decisive factor in their defeat. Gross Admiral Karl Donitz, testifying at the Nuremberg trials, stated plainly, "We lost the submarine war when American technology surpassed our ability to hide. No amount of courage or tactical skill could overcome the simple fact that they could detect us from distances that made defense impossible." The sonar operators themselves received little public recognition during the war. Their work was highly classified, their contributions hidden behind security classifications that lasted decades. But within the Navy, they were known as the men who won the Atlantic. At a reunion of destroyer escort veterans in 1982, former sonar technician First Class Michael O'Brien, who had achieved the first long-range detection aboard USS England, reflected on his service. "We were kids operating equipment we barely understood, making life-and-death decisions based on blips on a screen. I detected my first submarine at 19 years old and watched men die because I pressed the right buttons. For years I had nightmares about it. But then I learned that those convoys we protected carried the food that kept Britain alive, the weapons that liberated Europe, the soldiers who ended the Holocaust. Every submarine we sank was 40 or 50 men who died, but every convoy we saved was tens of thousands who lived. That's how I made peace with what we did."
The sonar technology developed during World War II established principles that remain fundamental to modern anti-submarine warfare. The basic concept of active sonar, sending acoustic pulses and analyzing echoes, continues in every naval vessel equipped for submarine hunting. The signal processing techniques pioneered in QHB and QLA systems evolved into digital systems capable of detecting submarines at ranges exceeding 50 miles under optimal conditions. The integration of sonar with computer fire control became standard in all modern warships. Perhaps more importantly, the American approach to anti-submarine warfare established doctrine emphasizing technological superiority over tactical innovation. The investment in research, development, and operator training created an institutional advantage that persisted throughout the Cold War and beyond. Soviet submarine forces, studying the German experience, devoted enormous resources to stealth technology, attempting to defeat American sonar. The result was a technological arms race that drove innovation in acoustics, material science, and signal processing for 50 years. The human balance sheet. The story of American sonar defeating the U-boat threat is ultimately a story of young men killing young men with increasing efficiency. The technology made killing easier, more certain, more distant. Sonar operators never saw their victims, never heard their screams, never confronted the human cost of their precision. German submariners went to sea knowing they faced near certain death, but went anyway out of duty, patriotism, or simply because refusal meant disgrace. They died by the thousands, crushed in steel cylinders at the bottom of the Atlantic, killed by explosions they never saw coming, delivered by teenagers staring at electronic displays thousands of yards away. The casualty statistics are numbing. Of 40,000 German submariners who served during the war, approximately 28,000 died. That's a 70% casualty rate, the highest of any military service in any nation during World War II. Most died after May 1943, when American sonar made submarine warfare a death sentence. American destroyer escort and anti-submarine forces lost approximately 2,500 men during the Atlantic campaign. The disparity reflects not just technological superiority, but the fundamental asymmetry of the conflict. Detection meant survival for the surface ship and death for the submarine. In March 1943, Korvettenkapitän Werner Kleist had smiled confidently in the control room of U-517, certain that American technology couldn't penetrate the ocean's protective depths. By May 1943, that confidence was shattered by reality. By 1945, the U-boat force that once threatened to strangle the Allied war effort was destroyed, its survivors grateful merely to have endured. The transformation was driven by American sonar that detected submarines from distances that German engineers deemed impossible. The QHB system and its successors represented not just incremental improvement, but fundamental breakthrough in underwater acoustics. The physics were unforgiving. Sound waves traveled through water with properties that careful engineering could exploit. The Americans understood this. The Germans learned it through death. At the International Congress of Acoustics in 1995, a panel of former German and American naval officers discussed the U-boat war from 50 years' distance. Dr. Peter Kremer, who had survived as commander of U-333, summarized the German experience with painful honesty. "We were convinced that the ocean would protect us, that no technology could penetrate the depths where we hunted. We were wrong. The Americans built machines that could hear us from 5 miles away, track us through every evasive maneuver, and kill us with weapons we couldn't escape. Within 2 years, they transformed submarine warfare from our weapon of choice into our graveyard. It wasn't tactics that beat us. It wasn't courage. It was physics, engineering, and industrial capacity we couldn't match. They detected us before we knew they were there. They tracked us while we ran. They killed us with precision that turned brave men into statistics. That's not warfare. That's science. And science was on their side." The ping of American sonar echoing through the Atlantic depths was more than just an acoustic signal. It was the sound of technological revolution, of industrial superiority, of inevitable defeat. German submariners who had once laughed at American capabilities learned the hard lesson that modern warfare belonged to the nation with better technology, more resources, and the scientific foundation to exploit both. By May 1945, there were no German submariners left to laugh. The ocean that once protected them had become their tomb, mapped by American sonar that could see through any depth, penetrate any hiding place, deliver death from distances that defied the imagination of men trained in the tactics of a previous war.